Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Free Speech Forward podcast. This one, I think, is going to be a really interesting and exciting episode because we have Kofi, who is, I would say, a prime example of a strong Black woman. But probably not in the way you're used to seeing a strong Black woman. So I think we're just going to have a really fascinating conversation about free speech, civility, diversity of thought. But I can't wait. I'm going to turn it over to my co host, co founder Chris, who's going to introduce you to our guest, and we will get started today.
Great. Thank you, Joy. And thank you, Kofi, for joining us. How are you today?
Good. And my name is phonetically Kofi, but it's really pronounced coffee, like the drink.
Coffee.
Even better. We should
So,
have all brought some.
which do you go by or prefer?
Coffee.
Coffee. Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you for correcting us and the record. Coffee. And and so I will give then a background on Kofi for all of you out there listening. Kofi Montzka has been an attorney for 24 years and works at the Minnesota Department of Human Services. She currently volunteers with the Exodus Movement, Take Charge Minnesota, Roseville United, and the Foundation Against Racism and Intolerance, FAIR, for those of you who are familiar. She's been a frequent speaker at the Minnesota legislature advocating for school choice and against Minnesota's law mandating ethnic studies in schools, and she is involved with Braver Angels and is a speaker on issues of political civility, as well as a political activist on ethnic studies and school choice. Wow, a big portfolio, so I can't wait to hear all the details and more about it. So why don't we just start off, Kofi, by telling us, how did you come to free speech issues in particular, or that being a value that you wanted to stand up and speak out for?
Well, I won't start back at the beginning. You guys will be like, oh my word, she's starting back at preschool. But ever since I was a little girl, I have been interested in speech issues and convincing others. Like, I knew I wanted to be a lawyer from when I was in second grade, and I watched the movie Burning Bread with Farrah Fawcett, and I was like, get that abuser. Like, I've just always been in my bones to advocate. But in advocating, my goal was always to persuade other people and not to silence them. And so, for example, as a little girl, a little weirdo kid, I was like in middle school, I was very pro-life, but I wanted to know why. And I had a journal where I would keep adding reasons why, like logical reasons why, not because I said so or because I think this is a good idea, but these were logical reasons I believed the way I believed. So I've always been like trying to persuade people. Or there was this like racist group in high school called ABC, and they had like Confederate flags and flannels, and they like were like, we're racist, we're cool. I don't know why this was allowed to exist in the 90s, but anyways. I'm like, I grew up in 1950. I'm old, but not that old.
Yeah.
But anyways, they would, call me bad names. And I just remember having a fight with the guy. He called me the N-word and was saying bad things, and I called him some other racist white words for white people. I don't know if I'm allowed to say, but it was like, you can say what you want and I'll say what I want. So I've just always been like, you can say what you want. I'm not going to silence you. I will just talk back to you and tell you what I think. And I will always be studying what I believe, constantly studying what I believe, so that I'm able to tell you logically to the best of my ability. That is something I do now. If there's a news story, anything, I try to study it, understand why I believe the way I do. Like, I don't feel an inner peace unless I can understand things that bother me for myself. And then just recently, I've gotten more involved in the free speech, civility type movement. I was at an anti-racism training at work that I was mandated to attend, and they would ask questions, and for audience participation, there's only like 2 Black people in the training, not very much diversity, but they would ask and there's only like me and this one Black lady that would ever comment when they would ask. I think people are terrified to speak up. I know it, in fact, because people private messaging me saying, oh my goodness, I'm so afraid to speak up. Thank you for saying something.
Yeah.
But so they didn't like what I had to say because it wasn't in alignment with their training. And at the beginning of the training, they said, if you put down any person of color, make them feel bad, you will be ejected from the training. Granted, they didn't like my points of view, and eventually they told me that I was not allowed to speak anymore. The 2 white trainers said I was not allowed to speak. And the training was literally called anti-racism training. But since I wasn't allowed to speak because I had been put in chains again, I wrote in the chat, I can't believe you're doing this to me. I'm one of the only Black people here. I feel so marginalized. This is embarrassing. What are you doing? And so anyways, that happened, and then I filed some complaints, but they were summarily dismissed, even though I feel like it at least went against the respect in the workplace policy.
Sure.
And but then to get them back for Equity Week, they allow people to put on presentations about different issues. So me and a friend that I met in that training, because she was so annoyed by what happened to me, we put on a training on political civility for the state, and over 350 people attended. And yeah, so then after that, I kind of have been more involved in doing other speaking events on civility and studying it.
I think this is really important. First, I want to say I love this point you're making, the distinction between wanting to persuade someone versus wanting to silence someone. And unfortunately, we're living in a time, sadly, where we're seeing that people feel it's okay even to enact violence in the most extreme forms to silence someone instead of trying to persuade, instead of trying to listen and understand and use our words, our language, our reason, our argumentation to try to come to terms with each other. And I also really love how you've framed the opposition to this as civility, that that's what we really need, that we need political civility, and that's a goal we should be aspiring within our society here. So I'm curious what you would say to all the people who don't really understand why free speech and civil discourse is so important. How would you answer, why does speech matter to flourish both as individuals and for society as a whole?
It matters, I don't know, so many ways. I mean, I think with free speech and just getting to know each other, working together with people across party lines or differences, I think that matters, because then you can come to better solutions in life and you can hear the downsides of your view.
Mm.
I don't know. Like, they had this meeting at my kid's school after George Floyd where they were like, the school decided to have groups to talk about George Floyd. And I'm in Minnesota where this happened, based on race.
Mm.
And I called the school and I asked the principal, how did you come to this conclusion that this was a good idea? And he said,
Yeah.
well, everyone in the room agreed. And it's like, diversity of thought's important in that room. You know, like, maybe someone could have pointed out this was a stupid idea to segregate the kids by race. So I just feel like it's important to have different ideas in the room. Personally, to me, for freedom of speech, I really value having fun and partying and getting along with other people. I equally have very, very strong convictions. So I'm kind of like at war within myself all the time. So I'm trying, for me personally, it's important to figure out how to reconcile this and how to deal with this. How do we hold convictions tightly and have charity toward others? Like, to me, it's like, how do I survive? So this is something that I have been personally working through, like, why it's important to me. The other one is, I just feel like we have a lot at stake if we don't do this. Personally, if we can't figure out how to listen to each other, speak, if we just silence others and dismiss others, personally, we will lose out on a lot of friendships, even our family. Like, we will lose out on people and relationships, deep connections. You will be lonely, because I have discovered that even when you find a group that you think you like, I will find, I'm conservative and black and a woman, an attorney, and I met someone else like that. And I thought, oh, we're going to be BFFs. I couldn't stand her personality. So my point, there's more to people besides politics. And sometimes, like, even if you think you agree on everything, you never will agree on everything with someone, or it's like chemistry. So I just feel like it's something we have to figure out how to do it. You cannot avoid it, even by trying to surround yourselves with like-minded people. Even when you find a spouse, you got to figure out how to get along with them. So I'm just saying, like, I feel like it's survival. And then as a country, I feel like we're going to be at civil war if we can't figure out how to listen to each other and get along.
Well said. Yeah, I mean, if we can't reason through our issues and differences with words, then all there is violence, right? And the whole history of humanity, basically, until we decided to draw the clear line of distinction between words and violence, was violence. So that is the great achievement of America and Western civilization, to draw that bright line between the two. And as recent events like last week's assassination of Charlie Kirk prove, there's just unfortunately a very troubling rising trend of people away from that. So I couldn't agree more. And I love what you said about people are much more than their politics. I couldn't agree more. If, in fact, I would go so far as to say, people, like, politics is not the primary thing to judge people by. Unfortunately, I think so many people are doing that now, and that's part of the very cancel culture that is the antithesis of civil culture. So I love that, and I would love to hear then your ideas or thoughts, maybe even just by your own example and experience, how then you prepare. You obviously are an advocate for these ideas and you gave presentations and the like. So when it comes to you preparing to share your ideas with others in a civil manner, are there any tips or tools you can draw from your own experience of how you do that you think might be helpful for other people trying to do the same?
Yes. So one thing I do when I first start out trying to prepare for something, I try to dispel I'm highly aware of stereotypes of myself or the political position or the people I work with. So I try to dispel those. So a lot of times when I talk about race or ethnic studies, people will say they're thinking, well, you speak very proper English, you're a lawyer, you grew up rich, you've never faced a trial, you've got a lot of privilege in your life. So I tell them my family, my story, and that I have had a lot of hardship, and I do believe racism is real. I have faced racism. So I kind of dispel, I'm very aware of people's stereotypes, and I just dispel them. And there might be arguments that work in my favor that go along with the stereotype. I won't use them.
That's admirable, though. That is the way to go.
No, I will dispel the stereotypes because to just start off thinking what I know what they're thinking about me, because I'm not stupid, and I will dispel those right away. The other thing I do is the main thing I do is I try to think of all of the strongest points on the other side and attack them. And that's like mainly what I like to spend my time on, because what is the point attacking, like addressing things that are common sense that we all agree on, like address the really hard things. And so that is what I try to do. I try to do when I speak. One of the best tips I have is to share personal stories. I think personal stories are crap because I feel like they're just based on emotion, and you're trying to like emotionally draw somebody in, and who cares about your emotions? Who cares about my personal experiences? I'm just one person. But as I've spoken, people tell me that when I share a personal story, that it impacts them most. So like when I talk about ethnic studies and what they're doing in schools, I don't just say CRT. I say, or they're just victimizing my kids. I give the example of my son who was told that, Black boys would likely not live to age 50 statistically, because they will be killed by police or white people. And so I give this example of this is how it plays out, like every day in school. This is what's happening in band class, mind you. He manages to fit this in.
Wow.
Lecturing the kids 20 minutes every day because it's his anti-racist duty because he read that book. Point being that you give examples. The other thing I would say tip is be gracious with yourself, because it's like, no matter what I do, I never think I do good enough. Like, I'm so hard on myself. And I gave this school board speech. Someone was recording it. It went on the internet and it went viral. And so I had people, Facebooking me, calling me, news agencies, anyways, over this video. But I finally watched the video and I bawled my head off for 3 days because I didn't like how I performed. I was like, this is embarrassing. Like, ew. But it reached a lot of people.
But it struck a chord.
They liked the emotion. It really resonated with them. And I've been on cable news and I watch it and I'm like, oh my goodness, you look like a fool. So most times, I don't watch myself or listen to anything I do. And I just try to be gracious with myself and just be like, you know what? You did the best you could. I mean, I was just doing a podcast last Wednesday or like a parent panel, and somebody attacked me. Attacked me. They exercised their free speech to criticize me in the comments, and I responded not so graciously, and I'm still trying to get over that. Like, I wish I would have acknowledged what they said was a good point and proceeded, but I have to give myself grace or else I'll never do anything again.
Yeah.
So give yourself grace.
I think all four of these things you said are each powerful, and I see the synergy between all of them. First, even the importance of starting with the story, not because emotions are facts or the case of the matter, something I'm sure as a lawyer you appreciate more than most, but just because it is that humanizing element that allows us to connect with each other as people. And then the importance then of having grace toward ourselves and even toward others, because as humans, we are not perfect in any way whatsoever. That said, even though we're not perfect, we do want to hold high standards for ourselves and we want to put forward the best that we can. So, therefore, it is important to think about what are our best arguments as well as the best arguments of anyone else we want to address. That's the level of discourse that we want to raise ourselves up to addressing. And then finally, your last point, I think that then once we do all those things, it does make all the stereotypes seem just so stupid as they are. And so to dispel all the stereotypes, so that is not the place where we're coming from. Where we're coming from, this more elevated, gracious place. So thank you for sharing all of these. And now I'm really curious to ask you what I always call this our blue sky question. It's the question of if you had all the time, all the money, all the resources, what you would think to do that could make the most difference so that we could have a society that really did appreciate speech and civil discourse. And especially someone like yourself, where you've clearly had so much experience in so many different arenas. I'm really curious to hear how you would answer what you would see might be the one most important thing that we could do first.
Yeah, that was a very difficult question for
It
me, and I
is. It is a
honestly
very
didn't
difficult
have.
question. We try to elevate our own discourse on this show as
I know
well.
you're like gotta think through things. I don't know, and I even asked like a bunch of my free
Be
speech
creative.
buddies.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no creative idea besides just to get. But one thing, just individually, what people can do is just get involved, like do stuff. Like I do stuff based on my interests. So like I like running, so I'm a part of a running group. And in that running group, there's people who believe very differently, and and that's a way. Like some of them are, yeah, believe very differently, and so it's a way to like if you know people who believe differently than you, then it's hard to dehumanize them,
Yeah.
and it's hard for them to dehumanize you. And so I just say we need to surround ourselves, not like do stuff that we're not interested in, but just do stuff you're interested in, but make sure you're surrounding yourself with people who believe differently than you, and just get involved with things. Like I've loved my involvement with Braver Angels.
Mm.
I did a debate with Braver Angels just as participating, and the head woman, I'm conservative, and the head woman was a Democrat who's leading the debate, is the one that referred me to do an NPR story because she liked my thoughts and how I communicated. So I mean, just getting to know people. There was a very liberal diversity trainer there, woman speaking in the debate, and she had some of the best points I'd ever heard. And I mean, it's just a way to get to know people who disagree with you politically. And I like Braver Angels because it's not about like, oh, you have to come to the middle. You can't have any strong convictions. It's like you can hold your strong convictions and still come here and be loved and accepted and have good conversation with others. And you don't have to be ashamed of it. Like all the leaders call themselves reds or blues, and people identify themselves as reds or blues out when you normally have to keep that stuff quiet in the real
Mm-hmm.
world. And so I really appreciate the work of Braver Angels, Foundation Against Racism and Intolerance. I'm a part of that. I'm a part of like a leadership board, and I meet with these guys once a month and to talk about things. And they're not politically the same as me on everything. We agree on some things, but it's just been enriching to be friends with them. So I
Mm.
just say surround yourself with people who are not like you and challenge yourself.
Well, see, and this is why we love this question, because that is a creative idea right there. And it's actually the first time we've heard something like that
Okay.
in this discussion. So, and I love it actually. And it couldn't be more appropriate for what we've gone through as a nation in the last week with Charlie Kirk's assassination, because again, and he himself went to go surround himself with people who disagreed with him. That was in his entire act. And unfortunately, people still found that offensive. But in honor of his legacy, I would argue we need to do more of that, not less of that. So thank you for that. And it is, and what's great about that too is what I love about that idea is that it puts the onus on each of us as individuals, but to take our own power and to do something, however small, but to just some form of action, to just be social and be around other people and find out what it's like to be with people who have different views. So oftentimes we get ideas that are kind of, and they're all great ideas, but they're very kind of, from the mountain on high, let's form an institution or whatever, and they can feel somewhat remote and removed from everyday people and everyday actions they can take. So thank you for that. And that, I think, is a great segue into our last question before we run out of time here. But just any last words or thoughts you would give to anybody out there who's looking to find their voice, to stand up for their values, and hopefully for free speech values, but for any liberal values that matter to them, how they might find their voice.
I don't know. The first one, I think, especially after this Charlie Kirk incident, it's like you kind of have to count the cost. Like, you can't be stupid. Like, you have to think. Like, there's lots of times at work I don't agree with things, but I have to think about, is this the hill I want to die on? Do I want to lose my job for this? And there's times when I do decide, you know what? I got to speak up. There's other times, most of the time, I decide not to. I think it's better to keep my job, to work around a bunch of people who I disagree with, just to impact them by being with them, and just by working here is a bigger impact than getting fired for my beliefs.
Yeah.
So I find that just like being present helps. So a lot of times I'm at work and people are like, I hate conservatives, they're such evil killers, and I hate this and I hate that, and blah blah blah. And all I'll do is just say, hey, I'm that person you hate. That's it. Shuts down the conversation. Like they're like, it stops and makes them think. It humanizes the whole issue. So sometimes it's not like, most times it's not like some big serenade and you're doing something. It's just saying, hey, I'm that person. Another tip I would say is like, be faultless, like in disputes, like try to be as faultless as possible. Like try not to be the one, like at work, you try to be civil and kind and follow all the rules if you are going to push back, so that you're not also in the wrong. Get to know people first. So like when I joined my running group, the ladies were just like saying all these things I disagreed with just constantly. And I just made the conscious choice to keep my mouth shut and let them get to know me first. So that like, because I felt like if I let my views out that I disagreed with them, they wouldn't get to know me. Like it would kind of stunt the friendship growth.
Okay.
And so, yes, sometimes I just keep my mouth shut, or even like anytime I disagree, I try to keep my mouth shut, get to know people before saying something.
Well,
and then just try to be kind as much as possible. Like I speak at school board meetings a lot before they totally shut down parent comment.
Oh, really? Is that what's happened now? Is that the latest
they
trend?
won't let it. And if you want to make a comment, you have to come before the school board meeting and just talk to them without the cameras on.
Wow.
But they won't allow us to speak where it's televised on like the local television channel, or you can watch it on YouTube. They won't allow that anymore. They shut that down in almost all of our school districts in Minnesota.
Wow.
But like I would talk to the superintendent a lot whenever I have disagreements or whatever. And so I kind of feel like I'm a problem child, and I'm not trying to be that way, but I'm sorry, I'm going to speak up if something bothers me. But I was walking during Christmas and I was on a run and all bundled up, and some lady passed me and she said, Coffee, Merry Christmas. I was like, who are you? And she said, it's me, Jenny, the superintendent. And she was just so nice. And honestly, I thought she would have like done this and like tried to get by me without noticing me. But the fact that she said hi to me made such a huge impact, because it meant that in all my advocating, I must have been kind. Or, like there must have been something positive out of that, which is so important to me, because I don't want to be a jerk. I just want to communicate my issues. So for me, that was like, yeah, momentous. And that maybe you don't know how you come off, but maybe I don't come off as mean as I think I do.
Well, I think that's a great demonstration of this very point that you've been making, and I think a good one, that you can have strong convictions for your views and express them civilly. And if that's your aim, and if you always keep that front and center of mind, that you can have a positive impact even on people that you disagree with, and form good relationships, find the common values that you do share with people, even if your political values diverge. So I think that more than anything is the goal of free speech and of civil society, because as you noted, we're never going to agree on, even personality issues, much less politics, much less any other values with everybody around us. But that doesn't mean that it prevents us from not only being able to communicate with each other, but even to form real connections and relationships with them. I mean, that is the foundation of a free society. So thank you for modeling it and for sharing your story and example of how we all can do it. I think it's a beautiful one.
Thank you.
And that completes our time. So thank you, Kofi, for this wonderful conversation. And for all of our listeners out there, as always, you can find us every 2 weeks under the Dissidents channel for the Institute for Liberal Values, our co-sponsoring organization, or on our website, 1776forward.com, where we link to all of our podcasts. We'll see you in 2 weeks.